All right, guys, I got a really exciting video today. The NAR settlement of over $418 million has the whole real estate industry going crazy. There's clickbait articles that, their agents are going to get paid less. They're going to go out of business. Like the way real estate is transacted is going to change. Prices are going to come down. Crazy stuff out there. I am honored to be joined by Andres Munar, the number one lender in Puerto Rico. You've got some great insight because in Puerto Rico, it's done a little bit different, and it might be kind of a glimpse into the future of how real estate is done. So first off, thanks so much for joining me, brother.
Hey Matt, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here, and I know we could chat about everything for a while, so let's get right into it.
Yeah, I agree, man. Let's jump right into it. What the settlement means today, how long it's going to take before things get put into place, because I know a lot of it doesn't even go into effect till July 2024. So first, maybe like your thoughts on this settlement and maybe a 30-second kind of what does this mean? What happened?
That's I'll try to definitely make it short. And normally, honestly, Puerto Rico is behind the times on everything. And for the first time, I feel like maybe Puerto Rico's ahead of the game. But real quick, what happened is, somewhere along the line, sellers and buyers thought that real estate agents were getting greedy, or maybe they weren't disclosing it correctly. So, a whole bunch of people got into the whole lawsuit thing, and NAR is just deciding to kind of settle for it. And, they're not saying it's wrong or right. They're just kind of maybe saying the way business is going to be conducted is going to need to be a little different. And like you said, it's, it still has to be approved, but it's the changes don't have to take place until July. And really the big change is just that in the MLS, there won't be a description of, how much the buyer's agent is going to get, which is where it leads the question is, where's the buyer's agent come into play? How are they going to get paid? Are they still going to exist? What's going to happen? And so, that, like you said, all the clickbait stuff and all of the TikTok videos going out there. So I definitely have a little bit of insight into that because, NAR isn't very big here in Puerto Rico. So that's a 30-second snippet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so for people listening that are like, what's going on? I got no idea. The settlement claim, or first off, all the lawsuits that came before there was a settlement claimed that like there's price fixing going on, and they're conspiring to inflate commissions on real estate sales. And we could go on for hours about like, but it's cool for lawyers to get 40% of settlements in class action lawsuits. Different story, right? And so,
And you know what, Matt? The thing that I don't think that some people have brought up is it happened to mortgage brokers, right? So banks can still make 4, 5, 6 points somehow, plus charge all these other fees, but mortgage brokers are, we're capped at 2.75. So we just kind of pivoted and changed. So just seems to be happening to realtors now.
yeah, and that's a great point. I had that conversation earlier where people are like, oh my gosh, it's going to change things forever. It wasn't that long ago, Dodd-Frank in 2011, when mortgage brokers had, for all intents and purposes, fairly similar things happen where it's like, hey, how you've been operating, like, we don't like that. We're going to now create something that forces you, can't get paid the front, the back, and all the fancy stuff. All it really did was, get some bad actors away from doing, unscrupulous things to get, paid more than they were due. But for the most part, it didn't change how the average mortgage broker operated. I think it's probably going to be similar for buyer's agents, right? Like it's not going to change how they operate. They like are no longer going to see it in their multiple listing service. Hey, we're offering the buy side 2.5%. So tell me a little bit more too, because I thought it was really intriguing, like how Puerto Rico does it to where it might be a glimpse into what we might see in the future, because 80 or 90% of the agents just aren't part of the National Association of Realtors.
Yeah, and I think that that's where Puerto Rico may be ahead of the time, or even the agents in Puerto Rico are going, this doesn't affect us. And other parts of the world as well, they do it differently. It's just that in North America, they're so used to having a buyer's agent commission and buyer's agents. But I've been doing business down here in Puerto Rico for 5 years, and only about 10, maybe 15%, which I doubt, belong to an MLS, which means that they belong to the National Association of Realtors. So and there's 10,000 agents. So let's just say 10%. So only about 1,000 of them actually belong to the National Association of Realtors, which means that the other 90%, they can either decide to co-broker or not. And that means for the buyer's agent, what that really means is either the buyer's agent will normally call the listing agent and will say, hey, are you co-brokering or not? And they'll get their answer right there and then before they go to show the house, they'll know. And if not, then they have to go back to their buyer and say, hey, they're not paying a commission. Are you willing to pay me a commission? And that's really the biggest difference. And so I've just become accustomed to that, right? Is that most of the buyers will go directly to the listing agent. Now, I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm really just talking from experience of what happens here on the island. And there's many ways that this could play out. I do have some agents who are very, very strong buyer's agents, and they will get a buyer's agent signed up front that is exclusionary, and they explain the benefits to them. I have this one agent, she's an absolute rock star at it. She does a ton of buyers. She's a great buyer's agent. She gets the buyer's agent agreement signed up front. She gets a deposit up front. And she just goes and shows them homes, and buyers don't bat an eye. I mean, she explains the benefits of it, right? She explains what she does, how much she drives, all of the research that she does. Sometimes that agreement will say, hey, if the seller doesn't pay me, 2 or 2.5%, then you're going to pay that. But sometimes maybe the seller will pay 1%, so they only owe 1.5%. The other thing is that I think one of the changes is going to be, or at least anyways, here, is that a lot of the buyers do go directly to the listing agent. And so we are very listing agent heavy. And that's, some of the things that go on here.
Yeah, which is an interesting case. Like, I love real estate agents as brokers. Like, we're team buy side, we're team buy agent, because that's who we're working with, generally speaking. But it's an interesting topic. And what comes to mind, honestly, for me, is that if you're a strong buyer's agent, if you can communicate your value, you'll be just fine. You'll probably thrive. If you're not, there might be a case for maybe you didn't deserve to get paid this commission in the first place, right? And so that might be harsh, but that's the honest, feelings I have inside. I think I read something too, that part of this agreement might be that this buyer broker agreement becomes standard, which, for anybody wondering what the buyer broker agreement is, some brokerages in the states have it, some don't. I've got agents that literally go to the association and they, shout from the rooftops how valuable this document is, because it basically says, I'm going to be working on your behalf. I'm going to be researching and driving and doing all this stuff. I want an agreement in place that says we're working together. If you happen to close on a home, then I'm due a commission. If you don't, I'm not, right? And so, that is something that, quite honestly, in the mortgage space, I wish we had something like that, right? But, for buy-side agents, this is the time where you communicate, here's my value. Here's everything I provide to you. And I honestly think that 90% of the time, that commission's still going to come from the list side, because great listing agents are going to say, listen, the best way to sell this house at top dollar is to get it in front of as many interested consumers as possible. In order to do that, I want to get our goals aligned with agents that have buyers, right? And the best way to get our goals aligned is say, hey, everyone's you do a commission in this transaction. And so, you could sell at $750 and offer the buy side 0. Or you can sell at $800 and you're going to offer 2.5%, which is $20,000. So 800 minus the 20 that goes to the buy side is 780, better off than, 750 minus just the listing agent's commission, or however that works out from a math perspective. There's plenty of data. It's going to be up to the agents to show people the data. 9.5 times out of 10 for sale by owner doesn't work, because sellers aren't very good at selling their own house, and they figure it out soon enough and they hire an agent. When they do sell, they sell for 15% less. All this stuff, which I'm not even on the real estate side on racing. Like, I feel like put me in front of a seller, I'll explain that, and
Yeah.
you choose to work with me or you don't. But like, numbers don't lie. So man, I feel like maybe I should be a real estate coach, bro.
I mean, I think that you said something that hit the nail on the head, which is I don't think much is really going to change. So in Puerto Rico, they're used to conducting business this way, right? So only 10% of the agents belong to NAR, so the other 90% co-broker don't. So to us, introducing co-brokering here in Puerto Rico, they're kind of like, that's a little weird. But in the States where it already exists, I think it's really just going to be a big pivot, like you said, to the listing agent saying, hey, and again, you can't put a compensation in that MLS anymore. But what you can say apparently is, hey, we're willing to pay some buyer closing cost, right? Which is the buyer closing cost, aka some type of commission. And I think that that's really how it's going to be done, is the listing agent being able to communicate that, because they want to continue to co-broke, right? The listing agents know that the buyers out there come from a buyer's agent, and so that's going to be one way that it's going to, potentially change, is that in the MLS description, the listing agents are going to put, buyer closing cost assistance available for the buyers, or however they may word that, versus here in Puerto Rico where co-brokering isn't very big. In the States it's very big, and so it's not really going to change much. It's just going to be a pivot of how it's going to be worded or how people are going to work together. And like you said, it's really going to come down to being able to show the value as well. Because let's be honest, in the real estate industry is a little cutthroat. You're absolutely going to have those that are going to say, we're not paying a commission, right? And that's just the reality. I wish that everybody was on the up and up, and it would be great, but you're going to have those agents who are going to say, we're not paying a commission. And at that point in time, as a buyer's agent, you're really going to have to be able to show your value.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least. Some of this stuff, is set to take effect July. Even then, there's probably going to be some ironing out to do. So I'd love for us to reconnect a couple months from now, because this is like the first week, right? News just broke. It's in the infancy stages. I'm seeing all kinds of stuff, different viewpoints on it, which are good and valid. And I think over time, we're going to see some things kind of ironed it out. Change, generally speaking, is a good thing, right? And some people are uncomfortable about it, or they're scared, or they've got fear around it. But I can't wait to reconnect with you in a few months to see what's changed, what we've kind of learned through this. At the end of the day, the hope is that it's something that's good and positive for consumers. And I think that's like where we have to get to. The fear I have, speaking, open and honestly, is like the buyers who are going to be least able to come out of their pocket and pay, whether that's a first-time home buyer, whether that's a veteran or whatnot. Like, I hope it doesn't impact them more than it impacts anyone else, right? Because you think about a cash investor, you think about some of these other, hedge funds, right? Like, they're like, cool, like less commissions sounds good for us. We've got a lawyer on staff that can help us look through the documentation and all that. The buyers that need the representation, that need it, and that are in the like position where they're like can least afford it. That's the fear I have. So hopefully that stuff gets ironed out. Let's reconvene in a couple months and see where we're at. Any parting words, Andres?
No, like you said, just adapt and change and be open-minded, and just understand that in other parts of the world it's done and those markets are thriving. And our market is thriving. We're still doing business. Agents are still making money. Buyers agents still exist. Listing agents still exist. Just gonna have to figure it out, but just adapt and change, and we'll all get through it.
Cool, man. Thanks for joining me, brother. Talk soon.
Thanks so much, Matt.